What's up guys, this is Zach with Top Deck Nation, and today we're going to be looking at a brand new Sylveon deck from the upcoming set Guardians Rising. Now, just to give you a little bit of a background on the set itself, it's been in Japan for about a month or month and a half, so you can definitely check out PokeBeach to see what all is in the set. But as for America, we won't be getting it until the first week or so of May, I think. And there's a lot of really good cards in this set. I think it's even better than Sun and Moon personally. There's a lot of great GXs that are bound to see some play, like Sylveon, Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Drampa. I mean, you can just kind of go on because there's a lot of really great strategies here. And over the next couple weeks, we are going to have more deck lists up, so be sure to check back just for more coverage on that. But today we're going to be looking at a really interesting deck here. It was kind of inspired by a list that did well recently at the Osaka Champions League 2017, which is basically, basically a Japanese regionals. I guess that would be the equivalent of it. But this is a deck that just relies on Sylveon. Now, if you don't know what Sylveon does, it's very disruptive in a sense, and it's just a way to, basically get cards in your hand. It's very similar to like a Quad Lapras deck if you have played anything like that before. It's a really slow deck. You're not really focused on taking knockouts so much as just knocking off energy, knocking, milling cards, things like that. So it's a very different kind of deck. So I'll just go ahead and walk you guys through it to show you how the deck works exactly. Like I said, we're just playing a 4-3 Sylveon line, nothing else. I have seen some variants that actually play things like Wailord or Bunnelby, even Durant, I think, from Expanded, but that is a Japanese format kind of thing. But basically Sylveon, what you're doing is just kind of tanking with Sylveon. So I think, as long as you get Sylveon out, you're good to go because Sylveon has 200 HP. It hits for a single energy, so it should be pretty easy to get set up here. But basically, Eevee's ability, Energy Evolution, whenever I attach a Fairy Energy basically to Sylveon, I can go ahead and evolve. So essentially, you're always going to have this big 200 HP stage 1, really difficult to knock out. And the great thing about Sylveon is this first attack, and basically you can search your deck for any 3 cards and put them in your hand. And so this is kind of similar to Lapras GX, like I said, like a Quad Lapras type of build. With Lapras, you actually just draw 3 cards, but with this, you actually search your deck for any 3 cards. And so that is a huge difference consistency wise because, you might draw 3 cards, but you may not get what you need. But with Sylveon, I can search my deck I can search for a Max Potion, a Verse Seeker to get a supporter, and maybe like an Enhanced Hammer. So I'm already knocking off energy, I'm healing, and I've got my supporter, and that's pretty much guaranteed unless they can somehow play like an N or a Judge or something like that to disrupt my hand, which is probably unlikely. They can't really, they can't consistently keep playing N against you because then they're not going to really draw what they need to either. So definitely works either way in your favor. And as for the other attacks, they're actually pretty good. The second one is for a Grass and a DCE. It does 110. So, it's pretty solid. It's pretty much 2-shotting anything. You can just KO a Shaman late game or something to get a knockout. And then the GX attack is something that is pretty awesome. If the translation's right, I believe what you do is choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon on the bench, and they actually go back to your opponent's hand. And so, if you're playing against like a Volcanion deck or something, and they've, maxed out their max elixirs, they're all in the discard, and, both of these Volcanions have like 3 or 4 energy on them on the bench, you can basically scoop them up to the hand, and then suddenly it's a lot harder because your opponent is just going to have to manually attach. And so, as you can see, the theme of the deck is just energy disruption. It's to make sure your opponent can never get set up. And then finally, once they kind of run out of resources, you can just kind of attach your DCE and start attacking for, little bits of damage at a time. So, you're not really focused on heavy hitting, nothing like that, but it definitely gets the job done, and it's really disruptive along the way. Now, as far as our supporters, it's a very thick supporter line, and as you might notice, it's pretty disruptive here. We have 4 Team Flare Grunt. That is your go-to supporter. You're always going to want to use that first attack and get a Team Flare Grunt because you're going to guarantee to knock off an energy every turn. We're playing 3 in. Now, the list I have seen from the Japan Regional Championships, it actually played 1 in, but keep in mind their format was a bit more robust. They had things like AZ and things like that in there, a few other cards for consistency, Battle Compressor, but I like in because it's always going to be a consistent 6 cards towards the end of the game because you're not really concerned about taking prizes, but if your opponent continues to take prizes and stuff, it's just constantly constantly going to disrupt them. And the good thing about N is that I don't have to actually, waste anything in my deck. I can keep it all in my deck and just keep using Sylveon's attack. I don't have to sycamore away, some really good cards like a couple of Max Potion or my Puzzles of Time or anything like that. I can just consistently play in and just slowly get set up, and that's why I like it a lot. 3 Delinquent, because Delinquent is extremely good at disrupting your opponent. It's basically knocking off their stadium, and then it's making them discard 3 cards from their hand. And so this is really good. A lot of times competitive players, they'll hold on to like 3 or 4 cards, and this is really to make sure they can't do that. And at the same time, it's also milling your opponent, because if you keep using Delinquent and they keep losing 3 cards every turn, it's going to get to the point where they just kind of run out of resources as you're also playing things like Crushing Hammer, Enhanced Hammer, etc. We're also going to be playing 2 Team Rocket's Handiwork, and this is also just another way to mill your opponent. Maybe in some situations you don't want to play Delinquent. You'd rather just play some hammers and stuff like that, or they have a really, really big hand and it wouldn't really affect your opponent anyway. So, you might get lucky and actually mill 4 cards a turn. I mean, there's always a chance you may not mill anything, but the odds are pretty much in your favor. I think you've got like a 75% chance of at least milling a couple cards. And then we play 2 Lysander. Now, you could cut it down to 1. It really just comes down to preference. Maybe you want like a 4th Sylveon or an extra Ultra Ball or something. But Lysander is really good because of the GX attack. You want to Lysander something up that doesn't have energy, that can't really retreat or anything, and then you want to use the GX attack to kind of wipe their energy off the board and scoop up a couple of their Pokemon. So really strong there. And just, late game in general, I can Lysander Shamans, I can Lysander something they're trying to build up on the bench. So just really good overall. And then finally, we have a Hex Maniac and a Team Skull Grunt. Now, Hex Maniac is mainly there because we want to make sure we do well against Decidueye decks. Now, Decidueye decks are just really rampant right now. I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. I know Volcanian's probably going to see more play because of Turtonator GX, which will have a deck profile up for in the next few days. But otherwise, Decidueye is still pretty big. And so being able to search your deck for Hex Maniac, give you that 1 turn of items, that's going to be really huge because you can get your Verse Seekers and stuff back and just kind of Max Potion everything off. So I think Hex Maniac is definitely warranted, even though we play Silent Lab already. And then lastly, Team Skull Grunt, definitely a different kind of supporter. In some ways, Delinquent is way better, but to have them, discard a couple energy from their hand, definitely really good. And a lot of times your opponent is just kind of holding on to those couple energy cards. They don't want to, Sycamore or play a supporter. So that's really good. If they don't have anything else, you wipe their energy and then you can just start doing some damage if you want to. As far as our stadiums go, we're going to be playing 3 stadiums. We're going to be playing 2 Silent Lab and 1 Parallel City. Now, Silent Lab, I think, is the go-to choice in the deck. A couple of the lists I saw from the regional championships, they actually played upwards of 6 stadiums. So I don't know if they were just focusing on using Delinquent every single turn of the game, or if it was just kind of a meta call because of some of the decks that were there. But I think, 2 and 1 is fine, especially since we play Puzzle of Time, we play Field Blower to knock off other stadiums. We shouldn't really have a problem winning the stadium war. Now, Silent Lab is mainly there for things like Volcanion, because it's Volcanion otherwise is a really kind of 50-50 matchup, because Volcanion can just get powered up and do so much damage against Sylveon before I can get set up. So Silent Lab is great there. And, just in general against things like Shaman, Tapu Lele when it comes out, which is essentially like a Jirachi EX. It lets your opponent search your deck for a supporter. Really not good if you think about it, because your opponent can just play Tapu Lele, they can search for an N, and then they can basically reverse anything that you've done. So Silent Lab is really good in this deck. And then finally Parallel City, because of things like Mega Gardevoir, Mega Rayquaza, basically anything that can abuse like a really, really large bench. And, just kind of limiting your opponent to 3 Pokemon in general is just really strong. So I think Parallel City is definitely worth it. As far as our items go, it's pretty straightforward. We're playing a lot of 4-ofs because the deck has to be consistent. We have to draw into anything that we need. We have to be able to reuse a lot of resources here. So we play 4 Verse Seeker. That can basically give you an extra 4 copies of Team Flare Grunt or Delinquent or whatever you need. 4 Max Potion, because the goal of the deck is to kind of heal damage off and disrupt your opponent. So like I said, we're not really concerned with doing damage until the last few turns of the game. We're waiting until they run out of energy. But in the meantime, Max Potion is really strong because you know, even if they do like 170, 180 damage to Sylveon, you heal it off, you play the attack, you search for another max potion, and then you just kind of hold on to it until you're ready to use it again. So just the ability to keep healing as you're knocking off energy is really, really strong. 4 puzzle a time, because that's going to let you pretty much take advantage of anything in the deck. You know, it's such a great card because it lets you reuse items, supporters, any card in the deck. And as you can see, we're only playing 2 DCE, double colorless energy, so we have to have a way to get those back in case our opponent decides to play hammers, if they delinquent away some of our energy, things like that. So Puzzle of Time is giving you just so many ways out, and it makes the deck a lot stronger. 4 Crushing Hammer, because Crushing Hammer is just disruptive, and you know, I realize it is a flip, but at the same time, you know, we play so many Crushing Hammer, so many Puzzle of Time, so many Flare Grunts, and so it definitely kind of aids in that strategy of disrupting your opponent's energy. And then we're playing 2 Enhanced Hammer as well. Now, Enhanced Hammer, you don't have to flip, but it only works on special energy. So decks like Mega Mewtwo, you know, Giratina, Salamence, you know, Darkrai decks that usually play those Pokemon, you know, that's really what that's going to be geared toward. And as you can notice, we only play 2 Ultra Ball in this deck. Now, this is probably something I might change in the future. I'm not sure. You know, it seems to run fine without it, but just for consistency's sake, I can understand if you want the 3rd Ultra Ball, just because you want to make sure that you don't whiff. I mean, if we're playing 4 basics, if we don't have another basic, we could easily get knocked out the following turn if we can't evolve into Sylveon. And, you know, I can definitely see that in the future if the deck becomes really big, people play Hex Maniac on the first turn, and then Eevee is basically stuck. So we're going to need a way to get an extra Eevee out just in case. And then finally, for our other 2 items here, we played Fill Blower. And, you know, I'm really excited to see tool removal back in the format. I think it should have been out several months ago because, you know, a lot of decks just haven't had the ability to shine anymore, like Greninja, because Garbodor, stuff like that is just so big. So Fill Blower is going to help a lot with that, and it also has the plus of being able to knock off a Stadium. So I think you can choose any 2 combinations of Stadium and tools in play. So it's going to be great against things like Mega decks that rely on Spirit Links, Garbodor decks, or anything that uses Floatstone, Fighting Fury Belt, anything like that. And it's just a way to knock off your opponent's Stadium. So in general, just a really strong card. And then finally, Super Odd, because you know, we don't play a lot of Pokemon, we play a lot of energy, but we want to make sure that we constantly draw into what we need, especially if we're max potioning our energy off. We want to make sure that we can put that energy back in the deck and reuse it. And finally, you know, speaking of energy, we're playing 12 energy here. We're playing 10 Fairy and 2 double colorless energy. I feel like this count is pretty much okay. You could even consider dropping an energy or something if you wanted to. The reason we play so many energy is because we want to open our hand with Eevee and an energy. Now, if you don't have the energy, you'll have to wait a turn. And again, you're kind of risking getting donked at that point. The deck I think I saw on the Osaka Regionals page, I think it actually played 14 Fairy energy and no DCE. But I think it would just take so long to get set up if you did that. I like playing DCE just because it gives you the ability to, you know, hit with the second attack, hit with the third attack, you know, the GX attack. So you can just grab it in a pinch. And again, we only play a couple because we don't really want to prize one, but we also want to be able to use Puzzle of Time to get it back. But that's pretty much the deck list, guys. You know, it's really disruptive. You know, once it gets going, it's pretty hard to beat because unless your opponent is attaching, you know, several energy every turn, you know, Sylveon just kind of holds its own and it just keeps going until your opponent is pretty much depleted out of energy. And then you can just kind of finish them off with the second attack. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Are there any changes you would make? Are there any other decks you would like to see? You know, this week I'm going to try to push out a couple more videos. I think we're going to be doing a Alola Ninetales GX, and we should have a deck battle video up this weekend as well featuring Sylveon versus Alola Ninetales, so be sure to check out that once it's up. But in the meantime, this has been Zach with Top Deck Nation. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.